The conference will begin when the speaker arrives. The conference will begin when the speaker arrives. The conference will begin when the speaker arrives. You are joining a live conference already in progress. If you would like to ask the speaker a question, please press 0.
We need to ask them for their phone number or anything. We'll already have that.
Okay.
Well, hello and welcome to this live telephone town hall meeting with Senator Tammy Duckworth. We just have a couple folks on already who dialed in on our inbound participant line, so thanks to those of you who dialed in early. We'll be going to the Senator in just a moment. We're dialing out to 99,860 of your fellow Illinois residents, and we'll be going live in just a moment. Thank you again for joining us today. Again, welcome to this live telephone town hall meeting with Senator Tammy Duckworth. Right now we're dialing out to 99,860 Illinois residents, and we will hear from the Senator in just a moment. She'll be providing some quick updates on some key issues, and after we hear from the Senator, we'll spend the majority of our live forum tonight answering your questions. So if you already have a question in mind for the Q&A that'll follow those quick updates, please press 0 to get that question to an operator. Again, 0 if you have a question or comment that you'd like to submit for our Q&A with Senator Tammy Duckworth tonight. And you can ask your question live if that's comfortable for you, but you can also let your operator know if you want me to read your question over the air instead, and I'm happy to do that for you if you're not comfortable going live. In either case, again, you press 0 to submit questions and comments. You may have questions about health care, or about the threat of troop deployments to Chicago, or about the economy. Or you may have questions about the Republican budget bill that cut trillions of dollars from safety net programs like Medicaid and SNAP, made changes to student loan and higher education funding, and gave significant tax cuts to high-income households and corporations. So again, press 0 at any time to submit a question or comment for our live Q&A with Senator Tammy Duckworth on any of those topics or anything else that you're interested in discussing tonight. We'd also like to keep you better updated moving forward. If you'd like to receive email updates from your senator, you can press 7 and give your email address to one of our operators so that we can keep you informed moving forward. Again, press 7 if you'd like to give us your email address to get updates from Senator Duckworth in the future. You can also learn more about the work the Senator is doing by visiting her website at duckworth.senate.gov or by following her on social media at Sen Duckworth on X, Instagram, Facebook, Threads, Blue Sky, and YouTube. Again, at Sen Duckworth. So once more, folks, we're about to go live with Senator Duckworth. She's got some updates for you, and then we'll go right into Q&A and spend the majority of our forum answering your questions. If you have a question, press 0, get it to an operator. Again, you may have questions about health care, the threat of troop deployments to Chicago, or the economy. You may have questions about the Republican budget bill that's making cuts to safety net programs to give tax cuts to high-income households and corporations. Press 0. Get those questions and comments to us, and we'll gladly take those on throughout our forum tonight. Let's go ahead and get started. It's my pleasure to kick this off by turning it over to Senator Tammy Duckworth. Senator, please go ahead.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. Welcome to tonight's Teletown Hall, and thank you all for joining us. One quick logistical note before I kick off. If you want to ask a question, please press 0, and we'll have someone connect with you so you can ask that question. With that, let me just start by saying how grateful I am that all of you have taken the time to join me tonight. I know the headlines lately have been, well, terrifying, overwhelming, depressing, you name it. So I certainly get how it would be easier to want to tune out rather than turn on the news. But that's exactly what makes me even more grateful that you're on this call with me today. Thank you so much for caring about this nation, that you've decided to roll up your sleeves and take an active part in keeping our democracy as strong as it should be. With so much at stake, your willingness to get off the sidelines, your willingness to exercise your First Amendment right, speaking up and speaking out is truly as important as ever, and I can't wait to hear from you. Because to me, the most patriotic thing you can do for our country isn't necessarily serving in uniform, although that is obviously a great honor, but I believe that for all of those who've worn a uniform, we would agree that the most patriotic thing you can do is to make your voice heard. That's why we wore the uniform, so that people can express themselves in this country. And you've shown that tonight simply by joining this call. So remember, if you want to ask me a question, please press 0. I'm sure a lot of you have heard about the quote, so-called big, beautiful bill that Republicans forced through the Senate earlier this summer. And the reality, and even some Republicans voted against it, and along with Democrats. So the opposition to it was bipartisan. But the reality is that bill is anything but beautiful. It's essentially a betrayal. It's a betrayal of the middle class, of our veterans, of our families, and of basic decency. The version of the bill that the House of Representatives passed was bad enough, but the version that came to the Senate, that Senate Republicans actually worked on, was even worse. They worked really hard to make it worse. They fought for even deeper cuts to Medicaid. They tried to make sure that even more Americans get kicked off their health care. And they worked to strip even more families off the food assistance that could be the difference between a little girl getting one hot meal a day and her going to bed hungry tonight. But Trump didn't stop there. No. Now he's threatening to send the National Guard into Chicago. Another unwarranted, unwanted, and unjust move straight out of the authoritarian's playbook that will only undermine our military's readiness and distract our service members from executing their core mission of keeping Americans safe from the real adversaries who wish us harm. I'm sure I'll get more into this later in the call, but let me just say for now that from personal experience, I know that the men and women who are brave enough to wear our country's flag on their shoulder are doing so to defend our nation's rights and freedoms. And they're not doing it to protect a tin pot dictator's ego or to police their own neighbors. It's not what they signed up for, and it's certainly not what their training is focused on. Trump and his Republicans should be ashamed of themselves, but lately more and more people seem to lack the capacity for shame. Republicans keep proving that they'd rather give tax cuts and handouts to Trump's billionaire buddies, even if it means ripping health care and other basic needs and services away from their own constituents, even if it means politicizing the military and endangering our national security. Look, cruelty and cowardice have new meanings under this administration, but if you take anything away from today, let it be this: we cannot let ourselves become disengaged. That's what they want. Instead, we've got to channel our outrage into action, because folks have got to know that when they come for Medicaid or for SNAP, when they come for veterans' jobs or veterans' benefits, we will not cover our eyes and slink aside. We will keep coming together, we will keep making noise, and we will keep speaking out for what is right. With that, I'd love to open it up to questions, because today's town hall is about hearing your voices, not mine, and I'm looking forward to answering your questions, no matter how tough they are. And thank you. Just a reminder, throughout this conversation, if you want to ask a question, just press 0.
Thank you, Senator. Very much appreciate you being with us, and thank you everybody who's joined us. If you have a question or comment for Q&A, press 0. Many of you have already submitted some of those questions, and if you're not comfortable going live with your question or comment, just let your operator know that you want me to read it instead, and I'm happy to do that for you. And in fact, our first question will come from Jerome in Marquette Park, who's asking, how will the consequences of Trump's big, beautiful bill affect Illinois? So happy to read that for Jerome. Senator, can you take that one on for Jerome in Marquette Park?
Hi, Jerome. Thank you for your question. Well, here's what happened with the big, beautiful bill. In addition to adding $4 trillion to our national debt, which will be falling on the shoulders of our children and our grandchildren, Trump and Republicans succeeded in making the largest cuts to Medicaid in history. And because of them, we're going to see hospitals, safety net hospitals, shut down. We're going to see nursing homes close, and thousands of folks in the state will lose their health coverage. It's estimated that 15 million Americans will be kicked off their health care entirely. In Illinois, we're potentially losing as many as 93 nursing homes, because you see those folks who are in nursing homes, much of their bill is paid for through Medicaid. It's funded through Medicaid, and also safety net hospitals. The state of Illinois would be required to pay an estimated $800 million for SNAP food benefits and administering costs out of the state budget. And, frankly, access to quality health care is already too difficult in this country. And people think that the cuts are just going to happen with rural hospitals. It's not. It's going to be safety net hospitals in Chicago. It's going to be rural hospitals. It's going to be suburban hospitals that are going to be suffering. Things are only going to get worse. And if you think that this is only going to hurt people on Medicaid, let me make it clear that it doesn't matter if your insurance card says Medicaid or Blue Cross Blue Shields or Aetna. When that hospital shuts down, it's not going to be there for you, regardless of whether or not you have private health insurance. And so we need to make sure that we restore the funding. I mean, the bill cuts almost $10 billion in critical funding for Illinois hospitals. And frankly, we can't afford that, and it's not going to be safe for any of us. And so I'm going to do everything I can to make sure that we do everything we can to get these Medicaid cuts reversed, because cutting Medicaid means leaving bills unpaid. It hurts our hospitals, and it forces them to shut down. Healthcare is going to suffer, and people will die. And frankly, Republicans would rather hurt middle-class Americans than simply ask the wealthy pay their fair share. I mean, the big, beautiful bill basically gives Elon Musk a $400,000 tax cut. The middle class isn't going to get these tax cuts. It's the millionaires and billionaires who will.
Thank you, Senator. Thank you to Jerome for that first question. We're going to get our next one live from Nick in Ridgeview. Nick, welcome to the call. You're live. Go ahead, please, sir.
Hey, Senator. How's it going?
Hi, I'm good. How are you?
Good, good. I have my question is going to be a little bit long-winded because it's a very important issue and it's concerning. In 2023, after Wadiad Fahimi was murdered, you came to the Mosque Foundation in the southwest suburbs, and after meeting with the leaders of the mosque, you actually told people outside that you will be a staunch supporter for Israel and to not waste our time pressuring you. Recently, you voted in favor of an arms embargo in the Senate.
And Nick, I'm going to interrupt you there. We've got 10,000 people on the line right now, and we really can't go through a blow to blow of the last 10 years. But I'd love to go ahead and ask the question you gave to our operator so that we can get to some of these other callers that are waiting on the line with us. So Nick in Ridgeview has asked, I want to ask about ICE raids. I hear they've reached the Chicagoland area and wanted to see what the senator thinks about this and any advice she has for residents. So that's Nick's question, Senator.
Yeah, I'm going to answer Nick's first question first, and I'll answer the question about the ICE raid. Nick, I think you misunderstood what I said. I am a biggest supporter for the United States of America, and a strong, democratic, independent Israel that can defend itself is good for America's national security. I voted to condemn what Israel is doing a couple weeks ago for the Bernie Sanders resolution, because what is happening with the famine in Gaza is inhumane. I believe that Netanyahu is committing war crimes. I have worked very hard to try to get aid into Gaza, and simply put, that it is not in the United States' best national security interest to continue to allow people to starve in Gaza. Now, listen, we are all for eliminating Hamas. I continue to be a supporter for a two-state solution, but my position has always been, what has been my entire adult life, the national security of the United States. And this is a tough situation. I am doing everything I can to get aid there, but frankly, and my votes will always reflect that. I put America first, and I'm proud of the vote that I just took to support Bernie Sanders through resolutions to condemn Israel action and to make it clear that we will not stand for the humanitarian tragedy that is happening in Gaza. Now I'm going to answer your question about ICE. Deploying massive federal law enforcement resources to hunt down nonviolent individuals for civil immigration violations doesn't do a single thing to make our country safer. It basically wastes millions of taxpayer dollars just to rip families apart, decimate communities, and crush our economy. I am all for deporting violent criminals, but less than 15% of the people that Trump has deported so far have actually had any type of a felony conviction. And frankly, if Trump truly cared about law and order, his administration would provide the Chicago Police Department and community partners with resources to expand promising violence intervention strategies, and most importantly, support initiatives that build trust between local law enforcement and Chicagoans. And frankly, what he's doing is what authoritarians want to try to do, and which is to try to terrify people on the streets and trying to crush communities and crush our economy while stealing precious resources from operations that actually investigate drug cartels and gun traffickers. If you really want to make Chicago safer, then maybe he should stop allowing for guns to be trafficked from Indiana into Chicago. Maybe he should, support doing some sensible gun control legislation. And certainly going after peaceful individuals and ripping them away from their families is not the solution. And certainly having ICE raids conducted with people wearing masks and not identifying themselves and terrorizing people on the streets of our great city is not the way to deal with immigration.
Thank you, Senator, and appreciate both of your questions there, Nick. Let's go right to Andrew next in Frankfort. Andrew, welcome from Frankfort. Go ahead, please.
Yeah, hi, Senator Duckworth. How are you?
I'm
Thanks
good.
for taking my call.
Yes,
Not
of course.
too bad. Thank you for your service, by the way. I, like you, I'm a fellow veteran.
What branch?
Air Force.
All right.
I'm especially concerned with what I'm seeing with this administration as far as the just blatant disregard for the Constitution that you and I both swore to uphold. So I find myself at kind of a loss as to how to exactly defend that now, given I'm no longer in the position as a military member to do so, and I don't see the protests in the streets having much effect, and I don't know that voting is doing much. So I just want to know, what do you suggest as far as the layperson? What can we do as just regular people to just get through this and get past this and make it stop? Because the protesting in the streets and at the voting booths, it's not seeming to have much effect on things. So I didn't know if you had any better ideas, or what people in positions of greater power, such as yourself, might be doing behind the scenes. I don't know what to do.
Well, number one, Andrew, you're doing it. You're talking to me. You're making your opinions heard, and I thank you for that patriotic move on top of your Air Force service. You need to talk. You need to express your opinion to folks like me, to leadership, but also to your friends, your family members. Voting, I urge you to continue to vote because not voting is essentially supporting the status quo. And so that is still voting in a way. And in fact, in the last election, there were quite a few people who did not vote in the presidential race, and you saw what happened, and we're where we are now. But bottom line, it comes as no surprise that Donald Trump is once again attacking Chicago. He's attacking blue cities, and a city like Chicago, where we've actually successfully brought down our crime rate. But, what he does is he continues his pattern of politicizing and misusing our nation's military for his own partisan gain. This man who did not serve when the country asked him to serve, he's misusing our military men and women to crush dissent. It's un-American, it's not patriotic, and it has no place in any of our cities. Bottom line, we all know this is not about law and order, because if Trump wants to support law and order, then he would coordinate with state and local officials, which he has not done. He wouldn't move money away from supporting our police officers. There's $1 billion that Congress appropriated to help law enforcement that he basically took away from those programs. What he's doing is just another attempt to distract the American people from the price increases of his own policies, from the tariffs, from his various personal scandals like the Epstein files. And now, he's trying to distract all of us by forcing the military uninvited into Chicago to intimidate Americans in their own communities. Frankly, this doesn't make our nation stronger, and it simply distracts the military from executing its core mission of keeping Americans safe from real adversaries who wish to do us harm. Instead of these National Guard troops practicing for air assault missions, instead of these National Guard, the Marines that he sent to LA could have been performing, practicing their amphibious landing assaults. Our troops should be on the rifle range practicing marksmanship. Instead, the ones that he sent to D.C. were sent out to pick up garbage instead of doing their military job. Basically, what Trump is doing is another unwanted, and unjust move straight out of an authoritarian's playbook. And it's only going to undermine our military's readiness and weaken our national security. So what I say to you as the layperson is, reach out to your elected officials, send the White House messages, talk to your friends and family members, and equally important, something that you and I defended is support people's rights to vote by going out and voting yourself. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator, and thank you very much. Appreciate you, Andrew. Let's go right to Amanda in Lombard next. Amanda, welcome.
Hi. Hi. I have a question about the reconciliation of the Big Beautiful Bill. Is that complete? Or when will it be complete?
So the Big Beautiful Bill passed, right? The bill itself was a reconciliation bill, and it was pushed through on a party line vote, although a couple of Republicans, 3 Republicans voted against it as well. And so the largest Medicaid cut in history was part of that. The Senate passed a bill, and Trump has already signed it into law. So it's already there. There was nothing to reconcile because the chambers passed the same language before the president signed it. So it has become law, and the bottom line is that this, what I call big ugly bill, was the largest Medicaid cut in history, and Republicans are refusing to repeal the Medicaid cuts in a funding deal. So where we are in Washington right now is Democrats are fighting to restore the stuff that they cut from Medicaid. And by the way, some of the cuts means that all Americans who have health insurance are going to see your health insurance, if you got your health insurance on the exchange, it's going to increase by as much as 15%, about $1,000 plus to $1,600 a person. So it is atrocious, and so what we have to do is actually to try to reverse what they did, but the bill is already law.
Thank you, Senator. Appreciate you. Amanda, let's go to Megan in Portage Park next. Megan, welcome, and go ahead.
Hi, thank you, Senator Duckworth, for taking my question. I heard on the news recently that the National Guard troops that would be coming into Illinois would be coming from Texas, which is known as a red state. I'm trying to understand why we have our own National Guard here in Illinois. Are they being bypassed? Could they be called up by our governor against the red states? It feels very much like we're on the brink of being invaded by another state. So I wanted to understand why that is even is that what is happening, and how is that even possible?
It's possible because these red state governors that are, not all of them, but the ones that are participating are agreeing with Trump to send their National Guardsmen. So in order for a federal activation of the National Guard to happen by law, they are supposed to get the consent of the governor in order to activate the National Guard. So Governor Pritzker is not consenting to activate the Illinois National Guard. So Trump and none of the Democratic governors are willing to activate. So when Trump sent in troops to Washington, D.C., because Washington, D.C. is not a state, he had direct control over the D.C. National Guard, so he could do that on his own. But to come into Chicago, he would have to get Governor Pritzker's consent to activate the Illinois National Guard, and Governor Pritzker would not give his consent. And so instead of having that fight and getting into the court fight, Trump just instead went to red state governors who said, yeah, go ahead. And so they are sending their National Guard troops from red states. This is part of the perversion of the National Guard's role, because you know what? National Guard states have been in support of each other for years. We have, for example, in Illinois, in my 17 years I was in the National Guard, we had mutual assistance agreements where if there was a tornado in Missouri, the Illinois National Guard would go to Missouri to help them with disaster recovery. When we had floods on the Mississippi, the Iowa National Guard came into Illinois and helped us build sandbags. That's what National Guard troops in neighboring states should do for each other, and we have these agreements in place. But the reason that these are coming from red states is because the red state governors are agreeing with Trump and are willingly sending their National Guard troops into our state.
All right. Thank you so much. Appreciate you again, Senator. Thank you to Megan for our last question. We're going to go right to our next one from Linda in Orland Park, who's asked me to read this. Linda asks, I'm planning to retire in 3 years. what impact will the big, beautiful bill have on my Social Security? Also, if the military being in LA was deemed unlawful, how is he able to bring them into Chicago now? So a couple of questions there, Senator.
Well, in 3 years, what the big beautiful bill is going to do for you is that it's going to make things more expensive, and your health care is going to be more expensive. Frankly, we're going to see significant cuts to a lot of programs that help Americans. I also think that what is going to be happening is that a lot of non-governmental organizations are also going to see significant cuts to their programs as well. It also is going to make significant cuts to food assistance programs. The other thing that will also be happening under the big beautiful bill is the rise in your insurance rates that you're going to be paying, and that's going to happen. People should be getting those letters in the mail from their insurance companies by October. So next month, you should be watching your mail because you're going to start getting letters from your insurance companies telling you that your health insurance rates are going to go up as a result of the big beautiful bill. What's going to happen over the next 3 years as you head towards retirement and over the next decade is that it's going to explode the national debt by over $4 trillion, which is going to worsen the U.S. fiscal situation. And then what that will do is allow Republicans to target Social Security for cuts. So if they were willing to cut Medicaid, they're going to be willing to cut Social Security. And remember that these are programs, like Social Security, it's programs that you paid into. This is not a handout. This is your money that you put into. Remember that Trump's Treasury Secretary actually bragged, and he actually said that the big beautiful bill accounts are a backdoor way to privatize Social Security. So they've already come out to say that they want to privatize Social Security. So we don't reverse what's happening in the big beautiful bill. You can see that in 3 years, they will try their best to privatize Social Security and basically steal your money that you've been putting away.
Thank you again, Senator, and thank you for that last question from Linda. We're going to jump right to James next in Evanston. James, welcome to the call. Go ahead, please.
Actually, she answered all my questions that I was going to ask.
All right, thank you, James. Thanks for being on the call.
Yes.
James, we did some great programs in Evanston for training, technical training for students at Evanston High School as well. And so I want to thank the city of Evanston for making those investments in our high school kids so that they can get good hands-on training for jobs that we need right now to make our workforce stronger. So thanks for being on the call. I did want to touch on one thing from the last question, which was if the military being in LA was deemed unlawful, how is Trump able to bring them into Chicago now? Basically by ignoring the law, and he's appealing everything to the Supreme Court. And so that's part of what's happening right now is that just like the tariffs were just found to be illegal, he's going to appeal it to the Supreme Court, which of course was stacked by pretty conservative activist judges. So we'll do our best to fight them, but that's the situation we're in right now. So please vote next election.
Yeah, thank you, Senator. Let's go to Victoria in Schiller Park next, who's asked me to read this one. She says, I have private insurance. Will I be affected by these cuts? That one's from Victoria.
Yes, Victoria, you will. I touched on this earlier. You are going to be affected in two ways. One, there are going to be entire programs that are going to be shut down. I talked with the Illinois Hospital Association, and they're telling me we'll lose as many as 9 hospitals in the state of Illinois and potentially more. And then you're going to see entire programs cut. So I'll give you an example. Medicaid pays for about 40% of the births that happen across the country. And if hospitals see a 40% drop in funding for their maternity programs, you're going to see entire obstetrics departments cut. So you could have private health insurance, but if that hospital isn't there, or if that oncology department is no longer there for you, it doesn't matter if you have private health insurance because you can't go to your local hospital. You may find yourself driving, an hour or 2 hours to get health care. The other thing that will also happen is, I talked about this, is that if you get your health insurance through the exchange, you're going to see your insurance rates go up. And so folks should take a look, pay attention this October. The letters are going to come out from the insurance company telling you that your premiums are going up, and they're going to go up significantly, as much as 15 to 20% across the board for all Americans. My health insurance, so I get my health insurance on the exchange as well as a member of Congress, and so I will see my health insurance premium go up just like everybody else. And when you get that letter, I recommend that you cross out and darken out your name and your address and your private information, but post a letter online so people can see that you've gotten the bill that says that your health insurance is going to increase, and then you can tag me on it.
Thank you, Senator. Appreciate that. Now, thank you to Victoria in Schiller Park. We're going to go live to Nicole next in Rogers Park. Hey, Nicole, go ahead.
Hi, Governor. Good evening.
Hi.
Hi, I live in Rogers Park, and I would just like a snapshot from you. If the National Guard is deployed in Chicago, what will that look like? For me, my family, I have teenage children. What will that actually look like for me day to day?
You're going to look like an occupied city. You're going to see you're going to see military vehicles on the streets. You're going to see National Guard troops patrolling the streets. They will definitely be around any federal facilities. That's what they did in LA. They had them stand and the perimeter around the federal building, around any building that's federally owned. And at the end, I think in Washington D.C., they also authorized them to carry their weapons with them. So now they're going to have guns on them. You're going to see what looks like an occupation of your neighborhood, and it's going to be scary. And that's what it's meant to be. It's meant to intimidate you. That's what authoritarians do. That is out of Saddam Hussein's playbook. It is out of Vladimir Putin's playbook. It is out of playbooks of dictators around the world. But that's what Trump wants to do. But what I will say to folks is, please be peaceful. Don't give Trump an excuse, justification for having the National Guard out here. And remember, these National Guard troops are here not necessarily because they want to be here. They're here because their governors agreed with Trump to send them here. So be polite to the National Guard troops. They're just men and women who would rather be home. But they're caught up and they're being used as pawns in a political game by this president and their red state governors. They're simply following orders, and they can't, they have to follow their orders because they're being given lawful orders according to the Supreme Court of the United States.
Thank you very much for Nicole for your question. We'll go to Loretta in Albany Park next, who's asked me to read this one. She's asking, what's happening with tariffs? Can you take that on for Loretta, please, Senator?
Hi, Loretta. Yeah, so what's happening with tariffs is chaos. On the one hand, Trump unilaterally declared and imposed tariffs on countries, including friends and people and countries that were not blocking U.S. goods. And so it is causing our prices to go up. And that's why you're seeing prices for things that are being imported start to spike. I'll give you an answer. I call it my mom-mobile, my minivan. A lot of automotive parts are sourced from overseas, not necessarily just from China, but from all over the world. And I had to get my tire sensor that tells me that my tires are low was malfunctioning, and it was $400 to replace one of them, and I only had one. And because the price of those parts coming from overseas is going through the roof. So you're going to see your prices go up. The other thing is, yesterday, a court declared that these tariffs are illegal. And if that decision stands, then American taxpayers, you and I, are going to have to pay all of these companies back, and it is in who paid these tariffs. And these companies who paid these tariffs are paying it by passing the cost on to you and I, the consumers. But Trump is going to appeal the decision to the Supreme Court, and they're about to file that appeal here in the next week or two. So we'll see what happens. But in the meantime, what you're going to see is a significant increase in your costs. Overall, the American people are still struggling in today's economy. I've been a longtime supporter of bringing jobs back to the U.S. that have been offshored and strengthening the American manufacturing base. And if they're used in a smart way, tariffs can be a useful tool to target bad behavior that threatens our economy and lower costs for consumers. But what Trump is doing is so chaotic that he's creating endless uncertainty and pushing our closest trading partners away while driving up costs. I'll give you an example. In July of this year, a survey from Credit Karma found that 44% of parents plan to take on some kind of debt in order to afford back-to-school shopping this year. That's crazy that you have to take on debt in order to do back-to-school shopping for your kids. And 85% of Americans in this Credit Karma report are expressing significant concern about the impacts on rising prices as a result of the tariffs.
Thank you again, Senator, and appreciate Loretta for that last question. We're going to go to Kristen and Hermosa next. Kristen, thank you for waiting. Go ahead.
Hi, thanks so much. Thank you, Senator, for taking our calls. I am calling on behalf of the Indivisible Chicago Northwest Side chapter, and my members are asking if you can talk to us about whether you and the Democratic caucus as a whole are prepared to shut down the government and what concessions you would demand in exchange for keeping it open.
I am demanding that we restore support for my constituents. So I'm interested, what I'm making clear is the only way to avoid a shutdown is through bipartisanship. Republicans have to work with Democrats. Again and again, Democratic leadership has asked to meet and discuss a bipartisan path forward that keeps the government open. I want to keep the government open. But frankly, it's been crickets from the Republicans. They're not willing to engage in a bipartisan way with us. They're not letting us at the table, not even letting us in the room. And in fact, it's not even, it's coming from Speaker Johnson and the House of Representatives and Donald Trump. They're pushing this very partisan bill to us. And if they once again choose to go at it alone as the funding deadline nears, which is the end of this month, it will be a disaster for the American people. Democrats do not want to shut down, but we also want to make sure that Americans can get the health care that they need when they need it. We want to make sure that we can build an economy that works for the middle class, not one that's rigged against them. And Republicans need to simply show to us that they're actually serious about working in a bipartisan way to prevent a shutdown and not sell out the American people. And by sell out, I mean they need to restore the cuts to Medicaid. They need to restore health care for Americans. I think that is, for me, one of the biggest negotiating points that would get my support for anything. But certainly, I do not want a shutdown, but I'm also not going to support anything that is going to take health care away from Americans.
Thank you so much, Senator, and thank you to Kristen for our last question. Folks, we've got about 20 minutes left, and we just finished clearing the queue of those of you who were submitting questions. So if you have a question you'd like to submit before the end here, press 0, get it to an operator. Again, you can either go live with your question or let your operator know if you want me to read it for you, and I'm happy to do that, as I'm going to do for Diane in Hazel Crest next here. She says, I'm retired for a few years now. I'm on Medicare. As a citizen, it seems like we have the people who make all the decisions for us that never use the program they are controlling. They are setting the system against us. I can't afford not to have health care, and this is frightening for me. Can you take on this concern for Diane and Hazel Crest, please, Senator Duckworth?
Diane, you're exactly the person that I am fighting for. What Republicans are doing, what they did with the big, beautiful bill, is they gave out tax breaks to the top 0.01%. and they imposed tariffs that make basic necessities like groceries more expensive, and they gutted Medicaid and SNAP programs. We actually need to invest in our middle class. We need to make Medicare accessible to more Americans. We need to restore their cuts that they've made to Medicaid. And frankly, that is the fight that we're going in for this month. The last caller asked me about, what would shut down government? What would shut down government is Republicans refusing to restore health care for Americans. And I know you're scared. I'm scared about you losing your health insurance and not having access to health insurance. I am scared about hospitals shutting down across Illinois, across the country, so that even if you do have health insurance, you can't get, your local trauma center has shut down and no longer exists when you're in a car accident. A mom has to drive in order to give birth because her local obstetrics department, her local maternity ward has shut down. And frankly, we need to make sure that we restore all of those cuts that have happened. This is the fight that we're in for this next month, is to make sure, first and foremost, for healthcare. And by the way, Illinois is set to lose 93 nursing homes as a result of the cuts to Medicaid that are in the big, beautiful bill. And frankly, that will be disastrous for so many thousands of families in our state.
All right. Thank you so much. Appreciate you again, Senator. We're going to go to our next one from Mariah in West Loop, who's asked me to read this question. She asks, what is the effect of the Big Beautiful Bill been on childhood cancer research? What is being done to protect funding for childhood cancer research? And this one comes from Maria, Senator.
So what the Trump administration has done, even before the Big Beautiful Bill, is cut significant funding for research, for medical research across all areas, not just childhood cancer, but for all sorts of research programs, whether it is cancer or other programs. And you're seeing universities having to shut down entire research programs. And so we're not going to make headway to deal with so many diseases in this country. And the other thing that is happening with the cuts that they're doing, they changed the formula for their research grants that go to universities and medical centers to say that the funding can't be for what they call overhead, but things like the microscope that you use in a library cannot be funded. You can't fund the centrifuge that you need to conduct your research. And so we're actually seeing two things happening. Entire research programs are getting shut down completely. So we're going to lose any headway that we're making towards a cure for any of the many of thousands of diseases that we're working on. The other thing that's happening is a major brain drain, because countries in Europe, countries in other countries are coming to our scientists and our researchers at places like University of Chicago Hospital, Northwestern University, all of these programs, and saying, hey, come to Sweden, come to France, come to Japan. We will give you a lab. We will not cut funding for cancer research. And by the way, bring your graduate students with you. So we're going to lose, we have a brain drain of our top researchers that will go overseas instead of staying here. And we're going to lose those jobs, as well as the research programs. And by the way, the RFK Jr., Trump's Secretary of Health and Human Services, the anti-vaxxer, just killed mRNA research, which could one day prove to be a key tool to treat many types of cancers. We were making a lot of headway there, and now he just killed mRNA research through a unilateral decision.
Thank you, Senator, and appreciate that last question from Diane. We'll go to Paulina next, who's asked me to read this one from Aurora. She says, regarding the Big Beautiful Bill changes to the SAVE plan, the student income repayment plan, which canceled the nullified interest, now that it's on furlough and up in the air, is it a good idea to switch over to a different plan? I'm concerned that other plans are unreliable, and I'm suspicious that they will cancel the new plans once we move to them. And she thanks you for holding the forum. That one's from Paulina and Aurora.
Hi. So yeah, regarding the changes to the SAFE plan, the student, I am deeply concerned about that as well, but I think that what you need to do is talk to your school's financial aid advisors, but also to talk to your financial advisors as well. It's so chaotic right now. Do contact my office. I am really concerned that it's not just a SAFE program that they're going after, because Donald Trump promised he would abolish the Department of Education, and he's fired over 1,300 employees from there, and he is doing everything he can to get rid of the Department of Education. So it's not just those who are in the SAFE plan that will be affected. The Big Beautiful Bill is going to cut significantly all sorts of student aid programs. It's eliminating almost every student loan repayment plan except for 2 limited ones. It is capping lifetime Parent Plus loans, graduate loans, and loans to law school and medical school at very low numbers so that students will have to take out private loans. It's scrapping Graduate Plus loans. But in particular with the SAFE program, I think please contact my office and we can provide casework assistance to you, because I want to provide you with very tailored information to help you with this. But basically what they're doing is they want to gut the Department of Education, and they want to get rid of all of these programs, which is crazy, because we need to develop the workforce. We need to compete on a global scale, and we don't have the educated workforce to do that. By investing in our students, then we're not going to be able to compete economically against countries in other developed nations that are actually making investments in their students. But contact my office and we'll provide you with casework assistance, in particular with the SAFE plan. And that phone number in Chicago for my office is 312-886-3506. That's 312-886-3506. And it's available online as well. You just search Senator Duckworth. And I have 5 offices across the state, so be sure to reach out.
Appreciate you. Thank you, Senator. And we'll go to Vicki next, who's calling us from Shorewood. Vicki, you're live from Shorewood. Go ahead, please.
Thank you, Senator, for doing this. I appreciate it. I'm a professor who teaches school safety at the university level, and my question is this: how much longer do our school children need to give their lives to protect what people think the Second Amendment says, and yet Congress does nothing?
I sat on the floor of the House of Representatives with John Lewis demanding a vote on this. It is obscene and criminal that we have not passed sensible gun control legislation. I carried an M16. I carried an M4. I know exactly what an assault weapon is supposed to do, and they don't belong on the streets of our city. It is long past time that we pass sensible gun control legislation. But as long as my Republican colleagues bow down at the altar of the NRA and the gun manufacturers, we're not going to get this passed. We need 60 votes in the Senate. But I will tell you that if we get control of the Senate, I will blow up the filibuster to pass gun control legislation. I have a few things that are sort of my dream pieces of legislation that if we can get control of the Senate and the House, that I want to pass. I want to pass the Voting Rights Act. I want to pass the John Lewis Voting Rights Act. I want to pass sensible gun legislation. I think we should have universal background checks across the country like we do in Illinois with, that should go across the country. I think that we need women's reproductive health care passed, access to making your own decisions, but certainly gun legislation. I personally have seen in a horrific way what assault weapons do to a human body. And I have a child in the 2nd grade and another child in the 5th grade. And I am terrified that they may not come home. And that is not how we should be living in the greatest country on the face of the earth. So I share it with you. I have pleaded with my colleagues on the Republican side, but frankly, they care more about the NRA than they do our children.
All right. Thank you so much. Appreciate you, Senator. And thank you so much to Vicki for being a part of our call. We have Melinda in Aurora next, who's asked me to read this one. She says, if all the federal programs are being cut, then where is my tax money going? Again, that's from Melinda in Aurora.
Your tax money is going to Elon Musk. It's literally that. They are handing out tax cuts. Part of the big beautiful bill is $1 trillion in tax cuts to big corporations. And remember that many of these big corporations don't actually pay any income taxes because they use tax loopholes to declare that have zero income. A family earning $25,000 a year will only get a $108 tax cut, but an ultra wealthy family in the top 1% would get $310,000. Elon Musk would get over $450,000. They're giving $30 billion to ICE, which, by the way, is more than the annual military budget of countries like Italy, Israel, and the Netherlands. This is the great theft of public funds for the ultra wealthy in this country. And they're putting a debt on the shoulders of our kids and our grandkids of $4 trillion that they're going to have to be paying back for decades to come. And it is obscene, and it is one of the things that we're going to fight with them on over this next month when it comes to, we had an earlier question that's like, what would push me into voting in a way that would result in a government shutdown? Well, the Republicans can shut down the government by continuing to support tax cuts for the ultra wealthy, and the Republicans can shut down the government by not restoring the cuts that they make to Medicaid and SNAP.
Thank you again, Senator. Thank you for our last question. We're going to Donish next in Skokie. Go ahead, please. Donish, are you still on the line with us there? All right. I'll go ahead and read this question. The question is, what are we doing for women's health care, and how is Illinois protecting women's right to choose? That's from Donish in Skokie.
Hi, thank you for that. Thank you for that question. I have introduced several times the Access to IVF Act, which the Republicans have voted against multiple times now. I keep putting it up there to say that, in particular, if you want access to fertility treatments, you should be able to get it. They are cutting all sorts of health care access, reproductive health care access for Americans by taking away a lot of the mandates under the Affordable Care Act. I get, in addition to health care and exchange, I also get my health care at the VA. They are cutting programs within the VA and making it more difficult for female veterans in particular to have access to reproductive health care. They are, with the work that they're doing across the country, limiting access to abortions, basically killing women. There are women who are not getting emergency care that they need when they're having a miscarriage or when they're bleeding out, and literally women are being told by doctors, you have to go back into the parking lot and bleed out some more until you're on the verge of death before I can provide you with a medically necessary abortion, because until you're bleeding out. And so what is Illinois doing? Illinois is protecting women's access to reproductive health care in several ways. One, we remain a state where we protect your access to not just abortion, but also IVF. We are also granting privileges to reproductive health care doctors from neighboring states like Wisconsin who want to come practice in Illinois. And we have women now who are traveling as far away as Texas to come to Illinois, not for an abortion, but to have an IUD inserted. Because you see, when you have these personhood amendments that say that a fertilized egg is a human being, there are doctors in places like Texas and some of these red states who are afraid to even insert an IUD because an IUD prevents a fertilized egg from implanting. And so they're afraid that they're going to be convicted of manslaughter in some of these red states. And so you have women coming from Texas riding a Greyhound bus across the country in order to come get contraception in Illinois. And so we have become a safety net state among all of the red states around us who are taking away women's reproductive health care.
Thank you so much, Senator. And folks, if you needed the Senator's website, her social media handles, or her Chicago district office repeated for you, you can press 7 here and speak to one of our operators. They've got that information handy if you didn't get a chance to write it down. And the district office phone number is actually what should have showed up on your caller ID phone today when we reached out to you. So if you need that information repeated by an operator, go ahead and press 7 here before the end of our call. We've got time for one more question here from Dave in Geneva. Dave, thank you for being with us, and go ahead.
Thank you, Senator Duckworth. I'm concerned about the status of the Centers for Disease Control and the chaos that's been happening there. Former heads of the CDC say it'll take generations to repair the damage. So my question is there anything that the Democrats can do to mitigate the damage that's being done to the CDC and the HHS? I understand that RFK Jr. is testifying tomorrow. Can he be held to account?
He could if my Republican colleagues would agree to hold him to account, but none of them are willing to do that. So all of this stuff could be done, but the Republicans are in charge in the House and they're in charge in the Senate, and they are condoning him. I mean, remember that they actually confirmed RFK Jr. to be Secretary of Health and Human Services, and so they are supporting this. And you're right, the damage to healthcare research in the CDC is going to take decades to reverse, and we're going to have to work to do that. But it really starts with us winning control of Congress and winning control of the Senate in order to start to reverse the damage. In the meantime, our attorneys general, Democratic attorneys general across the country, are the ones filing the lawsuits. They're the ones who have the right to file the lawsuits across the country. And Kwame Raoul is doing amazing work filing these lawsuits. And they're making their way through the courts. And we're winning, by the way. We're winning a majority of the lawsuits that are being filed to reverse the funding cuts, to reverse the firing of scientists. And so that is what Dems are doing, and I am fighting them here in the House to try to restore as much of the funding for things like the CDC as much as possible. That is where we're going to end up with, by the end of the month. What Democrats want in order to avoid a government shutdown is things like restoring funding for the CDC, is like restoring the Medicaid cuts, is like restoring funding for children's, college education. And Republicans want to shut down government, and because they don't want to restore those things, and that is going to take, every waking moment I have over the next month in my negotiations and fights with Republicans here in Washington, is to try to get them to agree to some sort of bipartisan deal, and to include in that bipartisan deal things like protecting Americans' health care.
Thank you again, Senator, and thank you to Dave from Geneva for that last question. Folks, we're at the end of our hour. I'm going to turn it back over to the Senator in a moment so she can offer any closing thoughts she might have, but I just wanted to reiterate, her website's duckworth.senate.gov. Social media handle is @SenDuckworth on X, Instagram, Facebook, Threads, Blue Sky, and YouTube, and that district office number is 312-886-3506. And with that, Senator Duckworth, I'll turn it back over to you to take us to the close here.
Well, I just want to say thank you to everybody who's on the call. Again, I'm going to reiterate, participating in this is participating in our democracy. It's why I wore the uniform for most of my adult life, defending this nation. And I'm so grateful for you for speaking your mind and letting me know what you care about. I am going to stay here and fight as long as I need to in order to stand up for middle-class Americans in Illinois and across the country, and for our nation. And I just, again, want to thank you for being on this call. And do please reach out to my office or on social media. The Chicago office phone number is 312-886-3506. If you need some casework support from us, but I want to hear from you, and talk to your friends and your neighbors and let them know how you feel and what you're thinking, because we have to turn the tide around. It is too scary for our children. It is too scary for our nation. And I certainly am not going to support an authoritarian regime in the White House, which is what Donald Trump wants to do. So thank you, everyone, for being on this call, and I'll see you back at home. And don't be shy about coming up to say hi to me if you see me in and around the state. Thank you.
Please press 1 to leave voicemail.